Okay, we will call the city council budget workshop for Tuesday, June 18th to order. Councilman Zahn may attend remotely at a later point or for the council meeting, but he is not here right now. So the presentation, the first item on the agenda is a presentation from the Employee Retention Committee, reference 2024 wage benefit ideas. Mike, Jack, or did you want to tee it up?
Thank you, Mayor Ryan. Good evening, City Council. I'm just going to tee it up real quickly tonight, just to ensure that as we start off and talk about a handful of different things that the council is thinking about, some things along the way, so that at the end of this, you can provide some feedback and direction as we start to work on our budget. So as stated in the memo that was in the packet, I believe there were 3 items. I did add a 4th due to the agenda. But first item is City Council feedback. If there is any on items presented by the Employee Retention Committee. City Council feedback, item 2 on the salaries and benefits assumptions included in the memo. I will walk through the council through that after our conversation on the Employee Retention Committee items. Council feedback, item number 3 on overall budget goals that staff can use to develop the 25 budget. So just any other broad feedback you might have for us, welcome that at this time tonight. And then finally, any feedback you have on the annual award policy language draft that it was in your packet as well. So with that, I will turn it over to Mike, and we have provided a set of documents for you, and we will have that up on the screen, and Mike can go through that. And feel free to ask questions as we go along. Thank you.
There, no, it wasn't. You're right. Might have been light just pointing at it. So let me start off by saying I'm on call, so I'm not going to completely silence my phone just in case this storm does something. So if I have to answer a phone call, I'll try to be brief. So the first thing we had talked about was longevity pay, and at the top, I won't go through each one individually, but at the top you have our recommendation. At the bottom, we have the personnel committee's feedback based on our meetings that we had. So on this particular item, you know, where we were at in the dollar values, and then the personnel committee had feedback of starting it earlier and a little bit lesser values. So we were just kind of wondering your thoughts on it, because we think we should be somewhere in between, maybe, or maybe not started at 5 years. Because the longevity pay should be more for an employee that's been here longer, was kind of my committee's consensus.
So just, I mean, some of the council, aside from the personnel committee, they haven't seen this yet.
Yep.
So
do you want me to go through each?
Say maybe walk through a little bit, like for your recommendation, is that every year? Is that an annual thing? You know, just some of that would be helpful, I think, for
structure. It was an annual recommendation, one-time payout, doesn't change your pay grade, doesn't add to your, you know, your dollar per hour amount. It'd be a one-time payout outside of your pay scale.
Bonus. Yes.
Yes. I don't think we could call it a bonus.
Right.
But in a sense, yes, it would be. So, you know, like last year, they did something similar of 2.5%, which for the average person probably was somewhere in the $1,000 to $2,000 range. That's somewhat how we arrived at these numbers, was based on that, you know, and incrementally going up based on your years of service, so that you get rewarded for being here for longer. We started it at year 10 because that's when your steps run out. When you run through your steps are done. So that's why we started it at year 10, because prior to that, you get structured raises, so to speak. So
when you say annual one time, is every year?
Yes. So at year 10, you'd get $1,000. At year 11, you'd get $1,000. At year 13, you get 1,000. And then it would go up, you know, based on the chart in front of you.
And you could certainly, we could go through these, come back, you
Yep.
know, however, if they want to just sort of process.
Yeah,
along the
however
way.
you
So
guys
just-
want to do it, because there's some things in here that between our committee and the personnel committee that we agreed on, there's some things in here we think maybe need more work. So. So I just see like the personnel committee come back starting it sooner because we lose employees that, you know, they haven't been here 4 or 5 years and we lose employees, but we kind of feel that even, you know, at $500, that's not necessarily going to keep somebody. If somebody's only been here 2, 3, 4 years, that isn't going to be what keeps them. They're leaving for another reason, most likely not because of their pay or because of a $500 longevity pay. You know, that wouldn't keep them, I don't think. So that was our only feedback back to the personnel committee's feedback was that you get it earlier, but I think towards the end, it's light. So the employee that's been here 20 years doesn't feel appreciated. So. You want me to go through any more on that one, or anybody have any questions on it, or thought process, or?
Go ahead, Mike.
What's that?
Anyone have any? Okay, no, go ahead.
So we can move on to the sick time payout one if you. So we originally had 2, so right now we currently pay out 50% across the board. Except the Teamsters union pays 100%. So after 10 years.
10 years, yep.
Yep, after 10 years, so. The consensus has been from many employees I've talked to in my department, other departments, that they feel like they are being punished for not taking sick time, so to speak. So we had 2 different options in there. We had this option you see in front of you, 1 to 10 years, 50%, 11 to 15 years, 75%. After 16 years, 100%. The other option that we had talked about was just a flat 75% across the board. And then the personnel committee come back with the 1 to 9 years, 50%, 10 years at 75%. And we actually agree that that's a move in the right direction. So we don't think that that's not all bad, so to speak. So I think that's moving more where we should be. And you see on the side, I have the cost impact, so that when it says like a 1.38% impact, that's an impact to the general fund. Because the liquor fund and the sewer fund are both not part of the general levy. So you can see the differences there between the 2 options. Any questions on that?
You understand what the payout is? When they say the payout, you don't get it paid to you.
Yeah, I got
Okay, I didn't know if you were aware that goes into their,
HRC.
thank you. Thank you for your-
I should have put that on here, that it's paid out into the HCSP account. The next item up here was the advanced retirement. So we had went back and just presented the original advanced retirement agreement without any strings attached to it, which was the 2,500 into an HCSP at 120 days, 5,000 at 180, and 7,500 at 360. The personnel committee's feedback was to remove the 1 year because it's almost impossible for somebody to give a 1 year notice. Nobody would really do that. So their feedback, we agree with it. It makes sense. So as far as that goes, our committee's in agreement that could work. I didn't put any costs associated with it because you don't know when somebody's gonna retire or who's gonna retire. So. And then the benefit contribution page. So we were asking for all employees to be to the same benefit level regardless of their family size. And the personnel committees recommended further discussion and more research to determine what would be the best move for the city on the benefits. So I don't know if there's any feedback from you guys, if you wanted to, like what more feedback we think we should get, or how we should go about trying to find something. The other item on this page was the part-time holiday pay, and that's on the agenda for tonight, so that's a very small impact and everything, so. One of the alternates that the personnel committee came up with was a deferred comp match, and we didn't present it this time, but in our committee, we had discussed something like that on several occasions. And we didn't put it in there to begin with because we were putting other things in there, and you don't want to come with 20 different things, 20 different options, but we actually like this idea. I think this is a very good starting point, and I think all employees could benefit from this. The two sections that you see here, so the top section and the cost impact is everybody that currently contributes to a deferred comp and how much that would impact the city. And then the bottom section is assuming that all employees would then take advantage of that benefit and the costs associated with that. We think this is a good idea to do something like this, and I think all employees would like it. I can't see somebody not liking a match. A lot of companies do a percentage match to a 401k and stuff like that, so I think this is a very good idea. And the last one was the idea of changing our vacation policy. So our top one is our current one. While we think we agree with the fact that there's lots of steps. It's hard to follow for a lot of people. So a simpler policy might benefit the city, but again, this would be just non-union because all of the unions could negotiate something different or to get everybody to agree. I think the proposed policy, maybe upon hire, maybe 10 days is a little bit much, maybe at 15 years plus, maybe 25 days isn't quite enough. So maybe the numbers need to be moved around a little. That's what our committee had discussed. So I have some highlight numbers on there, the difference in the policy, so that the proposed policy you'd net more hours in the long term over the life of your career here. You just get more of them in the beginning of the career instead of towards the end of your career. So you get more of them when you're younger. And I think for a lot of people, the upon hire getting nothing is a deterrent. Most people want to start a job with something, but even when I started here, it was a year, you got nothing. And then you got 5 days, I think it was at that time after a year. And it was quite difficult. I was a little bit younger when I started here, so having younger kids and whatnot, it was quite difficult, but.
School system as well, so it's more available at the first time. As opposed to getting 5 days out.
Yeah, the accrual system, the proposed kind of addresses the accrual system because then you have something to use when you, but yes. Or yes, you could accrue as you go and you still have to build up something, but yes.
Currently, they accrue this day one. They start accruing their time day one. They can't use it until they're done with their
Well, yeah, you
6-month
just don't,
probation.
you're not allowed to use it. You
Correct.
basically,
You
you
can't
work,
use it.
you work a period of time and then you're given those days to say now you've.
So upon completion of
Available.
probation, you would have those hours. So you've been earning them as you go. You can't use them.
Correct.
So
Correct. Yeah. Right. Well, but you're earning it over the more time, I mean, the time you put in
Right.
is an accrual essentially, but correct.
So that was the highlights of each page. Is there anything anywhere anybody wants to discuss more, or any thoughts? Any changes or anything, any feedback?
I guess one thing, pertaining to vacation policy, I know, and then it kind of pushes in through all of this stuff is what was just said about the accrual. The set years and the set amount of dates is really, I guess, out there from what I know. In the private sector, you know, with businesses and companies, a thing of the past, really. Where everything is on accrual, where it's, you earn so much based upon, you know, your 40-hour work week or whatever, and it keeps accruing in different manners. And what that actually does is, in my opinion, creates a more fair way to compensate employees. I mean, you know, your big healthcare centers in the area are doing this. A number of the businesses, my business does it, Jesse's business, him and I talked about last year, do it. And to look at that sort of policy, because then it doesn't limit or handicap people. There's still like a 6 month period, but then as you go, you know, yeah, somebody's been here 10 or 12 years too. You know, they're not locked in necessarily the 20 days. Even at that time, they could be up to 25 or 30 days. And it's actually, I think, a more fair way for both sides to be compensated. And on the employee side, it's, you're putting in this much time, you're getting rewarded for it with time off from day one when you start all the way through. And I don't know if you or anyone else has looked at that sort of system or setup, but I would just, maybe challenge the committee to look at that, because there's a lot of different ways to do it, and then negotiate the percentage based upon whatever, a 40-hour work week or whatever. That would be one of my recommendations, because then it not only hits here, but it kind of hits across the board with some of this stuff with like longevity and whatever. There's a lot of neat things that can go along with that.
So in the union contracts, I have it set out at how many days per years of service, so right? Correct, Jenny?
Yes,
So it's, they get that's the number of days they get, so, and it's just, so that, okay. So then to do it on a strictly accrual basis, that would have to be renegotiated then, correct?
Mm-hmm.
well, I think, in theory, if you're, you know, in your 10th year of employment, for example, if we have a predetermined, as it is now, a predetermined number of days that you earn for that year, you're gonna accrue
Yeah.
a certain percentage every month,
Same.
number of hours, or, you know,
the
so
same
it's a different
difference,
way
basically.
to slice it, essentially. Instead of getting it all at once, you would get it, a portion of it every payroll. I think the question is just the overall, or the idea is just the overall structure can get a little convoluted because of the number of levels that there is, and just trying to simplify and also use it as a recruitment tool to say, you can see it easier, you earn more over, as the sheet reflects, that you earn more days over your career here. That's a benefit too. Trying to just keep it simpler a bit.
Accrue the hours faster.
Yes.
Does anyone have any questions for Mike?
I do not.
Okay, thank you very much, Mike. I appreciate it.
Good enough.
Pretty straightforward.
Okay, I'm going to, I had some slides here. Sorry. Mission statement, let's go through to budget. So I'll do a quick run through of the assumptions that have been incorporated as of this point with our wages and benefits portion of our 2025 budget. This is also reflected in the memo that I provided to you, but it's sometimes easier to talk through it. So any feedback you have, otherwise we will just use this as we continue to prepare the budget, and then also we'll update as contract negotiations occur and we get a little more, fine-tuned with all of those details as well. So cost of living for all staff across the board has been assumed in these numbers at 5%. That's to mirror the Teamsters contract that we have settled for 2025 already, just as a starting point. I've incorporated $16,000 split between pickle and spirits budgets for the shift from the part-time pay schedule to the full-time pay schedule. That's still to be determined. Maggie and I will talk through that with both Brian and Terry as we get into the budget details, but I just wanted to incorporate that as part of our compensation study recommendation. Health insurance. We know, again, from the Teamsters contract, they only have a family contribution amount because of how their health insurance piece works. And for 2025, that's reflected at $1,450 a month, which is, I'm going to round here, 3.5% increase. So I mirrored the 3.5% for the single contribution, and that equates to round dollars at $940 a month. It's a little more than 3.5, but we're just getting as close as we can without like even dollars, as opposed to trying to get something in the cents, which we used to do. And I think this makes more sense to do that. So a 3.5% increase in the city contribution for health insurance. We have incorporated a full year for the new public works employee that we will be working on onboarding here in the next month or so. In the 2024 budget, there is a half-year employee budgeted, so it's roughly 1.5% worth for additional for a full year. Those were the main assumptions that have been built into the estimated budget. I do have and provided to you just a snapshot of what the CPI index has been doing the last handful of months. You can see from January through May, we're basically at that 2.7, 2.8% for the CPI index. Oh, there's there. I provided in your packet just a summary of the 2025 estimated budget for the salaries and benefits based on those assumptions that have been included. But the council is probably mostly interested in what this increase from 24 to 25 looks like. At the very bottom of that screen, you can see that the overall impact to the general fund is 7.7%. For the enterprise funds at this time, it's 4.2%. Happy to answer questions or feedback on anything wage or benefit related at this point. Anything you'd like me to adjust or consider as we move through the budget season. Otherwise, we'll certainly bring back updated information as we go.
Can you go back to the page for the part-time, full-time, the holiday? Or did you have that up there? The holiday pay one?
I didn't, no.
Okay, no, that's fine. I know we're discussing it later. That's fine. Okay.
Okay. I mean, you can ask if you have a question.
Well, that's included in that 7.7, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's fine. Yeah, that's all I need to know.
Yeah.
Anyone have questions for Jenny?
If not specifically on wages or benefits, just any overall budget questions, feedback as we kick things off. Just want to
Keep it as low as we can go, you know me.
which, yeah, we do certainly, yes.
We don't know. Well, yeah, we still have to factor in
Employee
bonding.
bonding,
Mhm.
yep.
That will come up this year or for 2025. So we don't obviously have those numbers yet. Okay.
Yes, that will be incorporated. That will be presented to the council in August. a full run of the citywide budget that will include estimated numbers for everything, so you can see where things are.
Okay. And do we have any deadlines or do we have any, letters of interest to begin negotiations from either of the two unions?
Yeah, I have traded emails with the union rep that says basically that they will be filing the notice to initiate that process soon. So I expect to hear something relatively soon to try to get a first meeting scheduled.
Because I do remember that September, we set our preliminary. so-
Certainly, yes,
Okay.
yes.
It's not as far away as we think it is.
No, very true.
So with the information that Mike just presented, you know, and there are some agreements and stuff in here. Do you have any sort of spreadsheet put together with any of this information in to kind of overlap with what this would be? You know, if we went with some of this stuff.
Well, I certainly could incorporate if
Yeah.
there were priorities or things specifically that you wanted to say. For you, I really liked, items 1, 5, and 7, whatever that is. Certainly, if there was some consensus, we could incorporate that into some draft budget information, so you had that. We have, as you can see from those sheets, we have individual costing analysis for each item, but to roll it into the budget, we just,
Yeah, I guess I'd like to see some of it rolled into the budget so we could actually see this, you know, so we're not looking at it separate, so we get a full picture, because there were several items that, you know, kind of both sides agreed upon and were fairly close, and maybe you could use an average on so we could see if does that make sense to everyone,
Mhm.
what I'm asking?
I think Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the early retirement item was something that we both seem to be in agreement on. I don't know that that's, we could take a guess on how many employees might utilize that. That's really a shot in the dark, but certainly that was something. And
But even like on the longevity pay, you know,
oh, yep,
there's some stuff to talk about, negotiate, but I mean, even
I-
if, let's just split the middle for conversation's sake and say, let's look at that so we can see how it might impact the levy, you know? With adding. some of
yeah, I
this.
know, yeah, I know what you're asking.
Well, I think I think it would be something that the council has to decide where they want to be. The personnel committee we listened, it was a great meeting. And there was some stuff that, and we exchanged and went back and forth. Understand the personnel committee cannot make decisions for the council. We just brought stuff back to you all. So the council has to make the final decision. Maybe high, low. I'm just trying, instead of trying to pick this one, that one, just include like high, low on the numbers.
Sure,
And that could
Sure.
be in there to Joe, 7.7 to say it brings it up to whatever.
Yeah.
So then we know, so we have, because like I said, we still have a lot of outstanding stuff. And then we don't know, of course, how or anything will be impacted contract wise, union negotiation wise. So,
we can include placeholders that will easily allow us to incorporate items.
Yep.
To roll up to the total like you're asking for, yes, yes.
Yeah, that way we can see what it does to the levy, you know?
all right. Is there anything else?
Not as far as budget. If the council doesn't have any other feedback, then I think the last,
Well, my feedback is,
Oh.
again, of course, we want to be as gentle as we can on the taxpayers, but some of this is the cost of doing business, so. That's what it is. But we got to factor in, we have to remember, we have, some big bonds coming up.
Mhm.
We got a big road bond, we got a road bond coming up, we got another bond potentially for property coming up, and we have another bond the following year for roads coming up, so just keeping all this in mind. But definitely try and be as gentle as we can, but okay, that's my 2 cents, so. Bruce, anything?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. Anything else, anyone?
Then the only other item we have is feedback on the draft language for the annual Employee of the Year Award. As a reminder, this was discussed at the May council meeting as an idea to start some recognition for a public safety employee of the year and a city employee of the year. So I put together something for your review and feedback and would greatly appreciate thoughts.
I'm fine with it. I have no red marks in it.
Okay. Bill? Bruce? I think we're good with it. Well, then my next question is, do we want to implement it? Or that we would have to do at the council meeting?
Correct. So I will finalize this.
Okay.
And it will be on the July agenda
Okay.
so
Sounds-
that it's incorporated into the actual policy and all of that. I just wanted to get your
Yep.
feedback.
And I'm sure Jesse will listen to the meeting, but if you reach out to him and let him know what our.
I did send this to him because he was the one who suggested it, to see if this was along the lines of what he was thinking. So.
Right.
So I did get his feedback, but happy to do that, and certainly let me know if there's anything that comes to mind.
Okay.
Is he gonna be the liaison to the party planning committee then for this?
He's not here. That's a good suggestion, right?
Okay. All right. Anything else you need from us? Okay, I will entertain a motion to adjourn,
I so move.
Second?
and we will re-adjourn at 7 o'clock for the regular council meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned.